Hi there. My name is Hannah. I'm the host for the Y.A.N.G Podcast. And on this episode, I was hoping to take you through how the podcast came to be so that we can get done with that. So tukiingia kwa the other episodes, we'll be on the same page. So how did the Y.A.N.G Podcast come to be? Initially, this project was supposed to be a duo where I would do the episodes and the shoots and the discussions with another person would be hosting them, but unfortunately we weren't able to align our schedules, and I decided to proceed with the project alone, and I'll explain why I proceeded with the project alone. So how did the name come to be, Y.A.N.G Podcast? Initially, this podcast, I had thought about starting. I do have another podcast, but I had thought about having a podcast that would discuss a specific type of topic, and that one was about kids that were orphaned, young, and now they're adults, and the things they've been going through, and how they've been able to overcome um, that type of trauma. Though at the end of the day, we realized we never really overcame it, we just learned to live with it. So initially it was supposed to be that type of discussion with a friend who share that type of trauma and past, but I thought it would be limiting, because that was only one part of our lives. Like, we are orphans, yes, but we also have other different we are also other different beings. We're not just orphans. We've become successful people, we've become career people, we've become mothers, we've become all those things. Like, we're not just orphans. So my thoughts changed from having that type of limiting podcast to now having a podcast where I would be discussing relationship issues, because I haven't been successful in that part of my life, and the different things that we've been exposed to by the people that we considered being in a relationship with. And hiyo tena nikaona itakuwa limiting, no, but not that much limiting. The challenge was I don't have such a diverse, what can I call it, a diverse dating background. I've only dated, I think, around two people seriously, then had flings here and there, but they didn't amount to anything that would be able to be a long lasting project. And already, like I mentioned, I have another podcast that I normally discuss such things. So I was like, this is a new project. This is something that I want to stand on its own 2 feet and claim its podcasting space. Now, after thinking about that, I thought maybe I could get a friend to do a podcast with me that dealt with the different facets of life. And I posted on my WhatsApp status and I said, um, anyone who is interested in doing a podcast with me, reach out, then we can organize how to go about that. And fortunately, someone did reach out, and we discussed how we were going to go about bringing the podcast to life. However, before I even get to that, there were different names that I wanted to name the podcast. Initially, when it was to discuss orphan issues and things of that sort, sorry, it was supposed to be Orphan Black. I love the movie Orphan Black, and the series watch, I think, back and forth several times, up and down. So I thought it would have been a cute name for that, Orphan Black. But then, like I said, that project didn't work out. So for this next one, yeah, love and relationships, I wanted to call it a bonfire session, because I have this friend who we work with, and normally we can discuss into depth what we are going through in our different relationships. And the reason relationship was such a hot topic is because, like I said, I've not been successful in getting a permanent or settling down with someone. And this other friend was also in the same category. So whenever we would meet, we would say things like, we'd want to share we want so much to share what we were going through, but took a job, so we can't sit down and start discussing these things. So we'd mention things here and there, and sighs here and there, and maybe laugh at weird things that we had gone through over the weekend and things of that sort. And normally she would just say, I'll light for you that bonfire there, and we'll sit down with a cup of coffee and we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the relationship. So I thought that bonfire sessions would have been an awesome name for that podcast. So even when I was going now to meet this friend who reached out on WhatsApp saying she was ready to do a podcast with me, I went thinking that would have been the name of the podcast, Bonfire Sessions. But then it wouldn't be limited to relationships. We'd be discussing everything, just like two people when you may end up camping and then they're seated around a bonfire discussing what they were going through in their lives. Unfortunately, my friend thought that name would be limiting. So in terms of mtu akifikiria, if you say you have a podcast, the Bonfire Session podcast, people would start thinking of stories like what are they called? The boogeyman stories, the stories that are narrated around a bonfire, normally ni horror and things of that sort. She thought it would be limiting, so we sat down and decided to come up with a different name, and also discussed the types of things that we wanted to table on the podcast. And mostly zilikuwa zina fall between, what can we call it? Life and culture, society and culture, they were all falling in that category. So we were looking for a name that would encompass those types of topics that we are going to discuss. And through our brainstorming session, I remembered something that I realized, or I kept realizing as an adult, is that there is what I thought once you've become an adult would happen. I don't think it may hit for me. Like, it may click like I'm an adult. And I've realized a lot of people, even older than me, people in their 40s, people in their 50s, there are still different things in their lives that they can't do without asking for help, or without, like, I'll see the adults in their lives, so they have to reach out to other people who are more vast, they have a vast knowledge in whatever topic they would need assistance in. For me, it imekuwa in everything. Like, I'm in my late 20s, but in everything I'm realizing I'm really not grown. When it comes to managing my finances, when it comes to relationships, I'm realizing, honestly, I think I need to be taken through a certain course for me to know how to maneuver relationships. When it comes to even prepping my own meals, I'm finding it a challenge. Like, I need someone to be doing that for me. When it comes to uh, different challenges in life, when you feel like you want to break down, when you feel mentally you're exhausted, you feel like you need to run home and talk to your parent about these things, get advice, get assistance. So I've been feeling that thing inside me, like I'm not grown. I'm not the adult I thought I would be at this age. So while we were discussing this with my friend, I was like, what if we call it You're Not Grown? We just call that podcast You're Not Grown. And she objected to it kidogo. She thought, for people who are older than us, people in their 40s, people in their 50s, people in their 60s who might want to listen to a podcast, they might think when we say you're not grown, it might come off as an insult. But I told her, even then, I gave her an example of one of my bosses. He was telling me that even he goes to ask for assistance to his bosses. And I'm looking at him like, I thought you had figured everything out. I thought you had figured everything out. I thought you are the adult in this situation. And he was like, no, I have to go ask for guidance when it comes to some things. I've still not figured everything out. So I was like, even for people like that, it's still applicable because the things we are discussing are life challenges, and at every stage of our lives we are still facing challenges. So we discussed it, and then I told her, you remember when we were looking for this name, looking up the different names for this podcast, they were saying things like they have to be catchy. If the acronym is quite cute, the podcast it becomes memorable. So I tried. It was just by luck, honestly. I tried taking the first letters of each word in the sentence "You're not grown," and it came to young. The first letter of U, the first letter of R, the first letter of not, and the first letter of grown. So ina kuja ikiwa young, which I didn't realize was such a cute name until another person who was in the brainstorming session said that is quite a name. That is quite a cute name. That one is quite a creative name. So that's how the name The Y.A.N.G Podcast came to be. A little bit about your host, myself, Hannah, is my background is in sales and marketing. But even before I started my career in sales and marketing, I studied business, IT. And before I chose that course, I wanted to go into law, but unfortunately finances didn't work out. And also before I chose law, I wanted to be a journalist and to be in radio specifically. I loved being in radio. I thought having a life like the one for Kina Jalas, Kina Caroline, Kina Fredo Bachi, the people I grew up listening to, would be an awesome way to live life. I loved that experience, like listening to them every day, listening to them talk about hot topics. Ilikuwa the best part of my day. So I was like, I wanted to be in radio. And unfortunately, when I was doing my final, I think my final units in high school, KCSE, when I was sitting for my KCSE, this certain teacher, she was a lady, came to me and asked, "What are you planning to study when you go to campus?" And I was like, I want to go into journalism and I want to go into radio." And she told me that people with my background and my background tutaingililia tu bado as we proceed with this podcast, you come to realize why she said people with my background should not go for such courses, because if you don't end up getting a job, you will go back to the cycle that you're trying to escape. So she told me, try and get a course that you're sure is going to give you a footing so that your kids can be able to do these courses. And even when I left that conversation, I didn't realize how much damage her statements had done to my ambition to go into radio. But by the time nafika campus, by the time I'm starting these things, studying and things of that sort, I just either way, the people who are taking care of my face would not have paid for me to go for journalism. They had the same mentality that you needed to do a course that would actually guarantee you a job so that at least your kids can be able to dream. So, but the passion to go into journalism, to be able to narrate stories, to be able to talk to people, to be able to have interaction and discussions that were illuminating for people has never died in me. So this project, I'm hoping and praying, is going to be successful because it's going to fulfill that part of that desire in my soul to be able to have the same, hata kama si radio, the same environment like my role models did, how kina Caroline and Linda Nyangwe. So I remember being very young and listening to them almost every morning on the big breakfast. Hiyo kitu ijaini toka kwa kichwa. Ijaini toka kwa kichwa. The first, when I started listening to them, I think they used to come with Caroline Motoko, Linda Nyangweso, and Larry Asego, if I'm not wrong. I don't remember the third person very well, but as they progressed, Jalas joined them, and hiyo discussion ilikuwa inanibamba all the time, any day, anytime. I would listen to them. Ikifika weekends, when they were replaying some of the things that happened on during the week, I would be there listening to the things that they had discussed. So basically, and in the long and short of it, that is how the Y.A.N.G Podcast was birthed. So hopefully you're going to subscribe, hopefully you're going to follow us, hopefully you're going to spread the message and talk to people, tell them that we are here. And by we, I mean me and my microphones and my friends who have pledged to be showing up on different episodes. We discuss different things that are passionate to them. So I think that's it. So thank you for listening, and I hope to see you in the next episode. Bye.